Hi, my name's Joe. I'm the bass player from Sordid Ordeal, and I'm just announcing that we're putting out our single from our second album called Tigress on October the 4th and playing a live show to help with the launch of that show single on the 19th at Stay Gold.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us today, Joe. And can you tell us a little bit more about Tigress and the video clip?
Um, it's a pretty rocking bluesy sort of tune that we has been written and recorded quite a while ago, actually. And like Lawrence will go into a little bit more when he jumps on, but it's to do with kind of the like overarching story of both the albums being about moving out of a small town and going into the big city and figuring out who you are and all that kind of thing. And it's written about a personal friend of Lawrence's who left Wagga, the town that he also grew up in, and moved to Sydney, and because she didn't want to live the farm wife sort of lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is obviously there's nothing wrong with, but it's pretty common out there, and not everyone who's born in the situation wants to stay there. As far as I know, no one in the band is from Melbourne.
Oh, interesting. That was going to be my other question.
Yeah. I'm from Brisbane. Jake is a Kiwi. I think he's from somewhere around Auckland. I
Uh,
can't remember, some town up there.
yeah.
Um, Pat's from country Victoria. Ella, I think, is from Sydney, and Zell, our drummer, is from Cornwall.
Oh, there you go. Wow. All
Yeah,
over the place.
yeah, yeah.
And how did you, I don't know if this may be a question for Lawrence later, but
Hmm.
how did you guys decide on what you wanted for the video clip? Did you all come together or is there one person that
Nah, so Lawrence sort of did and storyboarded that whole thing, being that he wrote both the albums that like the last album that we just released in I think February.
yeah.
That did pretty good actually. When we would think we debuted at number 8 on the Air Independent charts that week, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
But
easy.
so it's all kind of to do with his like because he grew up in Wagga,
Yeah.
so like his moving to Melbourne and how that experience was for him and how he's had conversation with that. A lot of people in the Melbourne music scene have similar stories from all over the place. So he's basically had the whole thing as a concept
Yeah. Oh,
going
wow.
through the whole time. So in that when it came time to do the film clip for Tigress, he already had the whole thing in his head.
In his head.
Yeah,
Far out.
including the actress that we used for it and the film crew and all those kinds of things. Yo, Jake,
Hey.
there he
Hey,
is.
we got you.
Beautiful.
How are you?
Good, good. How are you, doll?
Good.
So we were just talking about Tigress and the video clip and the new single. Maybe Jake, do you want to tell us a bit about, from your perspective, what Tigress is for you?
Um, it's interesting because, I just knew it as a song and sort of, how lyrics generally sort of tend to mean different things for different people, unless they're incredibly literal, even when they are, sometimes they mean different things for different people. So, um, to me, it was kind of just like a nice bluesy stomper, good sort of summer road trip song. But recently, Lawrence has been talking about what it means to him, and he's
Yeah.
the one who wrote it, obviously. So it's been interesting hearing his side of it, how it's about sort of, moving out of the country and moving to the big city and making your own way in life and not following the norms that are expected of you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And whenever we play it now, I'm sort of picturing that, and I have that in mind. So it kind of makes it feel different from every time we play it as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And how did the songs come together for you guys? Is it music first or lyrics first or idea first?
Because we've only been in the band for a little while, most of the songs were already written before we joined. So we haven't actually done much songwriting with the band. It's all been songs that Lawrence wrote in the past. Yeah, so we're not really the right people to ask about that in the context of this band anyway.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Well, when we joined the band, like on this new run, I think Jake joined first and then got me involved, and we kind of just go in and it's like very simple. Like here's album one songs. We learn them, and then we're going through and learning all the second album songs now.
Oh, wow.
But because we've got those two like whole projects recorded and done, we haven't really had the time to go through and do our own writing. But the idea is over the next like well next year to try and basically write and record another album to put out at the end of next year
Yeah,
or
yeah.
early the year after kind of thing.
Yeah.
All
But
together, I suppose.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of pretty great musicality within the band. So I think it'll be a lot of taking like ideas and concepts and then kind of like putting the music through them, and then I guess Lawrence running off and writing his own lyrics, or coming off the back of material that he's already got because he's got books on it.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's got like 4 albums already written, basically. So
he might have
we'll be
mentioned
writing
a
our
rock
own
opera at
parts.
some point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that doesn't surprise me. And how long have you guys, so I'm sorry, I should know, but how long have you guys been in the band for?
I should probably know too. Like,
About a year, I think.
yeah,
About a year for me.
Yeah.
I'll be about the same. I think. No, I remember getting. I remember the Facebook memories thing of when I joined the band popping up like a couple of months ago. So it's probably about 18 months.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay,
I
cool.
think something like that. Something
then,
in between
Yeah,
those two
I guess
numbers.
Yeah.
year and a quarter, something like that. I mean, in my experience, the band that I was in before this, we had in the course of 10 years, we had 5 drummers, 6 bassists,
Yeah.
3 keys players. So it's kind of just, if you're in a band for a long time, it's pretty hard to keep the original core members together for that long because people go off and do their own things and move and whatever else, So it's been one of those where it's sort of been a bit of a rotating roster over the years. But I'm sure he's just trying to be nice, but Lawrence reckons we're the best iteration of the band yet. So
Of course. Well, I mean,
of course he would say that.
Of course.
But he says that to all the guitarists.
No. But I mean, it's pretty awesome that you guys, because you guys are playing Metal in the Mountains. Hey, Lawrence.
Yep.
Oh, maybe he can't hear me yet.
Okay.
It's pretty awesome that you guys get to join in and do, play that. That's, pretty telling.
Yeah.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting like bridge of genre sort of stuff because we're not like we have some heavy stuff. We're not really like a metal band.
Yeah.
But we're also not really a rock band. We're not like we have a lot of Celtic influence and violins and all this kind of stuff, but we're not really like an Irish, Scottish band. So we're like like a lot of bands these days, we just sit in between a lot of the stuff. We're not out playing, AC/DC type music or like just death metal or anything like.
Yeah, it's hard
like
to
narrow
categorize you guys into one genre, I think. Like I've seen you been called bluesy, ballady, folky,
Yeah, it's like we made up our own genre. We're calling ourselves a stout rock band.
Nice.
Yeah, like we're not really alcoholics, but
Hey, how you going?
Yeah. I'm all right. I'm a little bit ill, so I'm a little bit, but I'm good.
Oh, no, that's all right. I was telling the boys before that I had my daughter's birthday party today, so I'm a bit out of it myself. Don't worry.
Oh, wow. How old?
7. So
yeah, right. So doing lines of sugar straight off the table and
exactly.
just down and nerds. Yeah.
So much fun. So we were just talking a bit before about Tigress and the video clip and obviously the single coming out. I just wanted to get your story on how did you come up with the idea for the video clip and also the meaning behind the song?
The meaning behind the song is, well, I mean, the song is about a woman who breaks out of the expectations of conservative rural Australia and decides to move to the city and live her own life. And she left Wagga in the 80s. It is a woman that I know. I can't elaborate too much more on the details of that. But it was a direct inspiration, and I think I drew a lot of comparison to what my journey was like. And although it wasn't that of a woman growing up in a country with, quite a problem with misogyny and chauvinism, my personal journey was breaking out of a militantly religious family and going to the city to find myself. And so, although, there's different versions of the message, the result is very much the same. So that song Falling Out of Me was quite an easy one to write. As for the video, it's not, not everybody gets a band full of such good looking roosters. And so I think I just wanted to feature everyone in a video clip. Like our last two video clips were done with the previous lineup. And I was like, well, the next clip I want to record, although there's going to be a narrative aspect to it, which is where Ferry Mayer, the burlesque dancer, comes into it.
Yeah.
First and foremost, just putting the current lineup of the band in there, I just wanted people to see this is what it is now. This is how much better it is. Look at the beard on that man over there, and how good is it,
Look
Joe?
at this dude's hair.
But, yeah, but having there was actually a bit of a conundrum in deciding how to portray the narrative of the character that I created for this, Alestrina, because how do you want to portray that liberation, that breaking out of the mold in an exciting way, but if you did it in like a business corporate sense, there's not a lot to that, and so I think it was a matter of trying to find something that represented it in a dignified way.
Yeah.
And when you take someone like a burlesque dancer like Ferry Mayer, who has danced her whole life and worked so hard to reach the upper echelons of the international dance community, become as internationally renowned as she is, to win burlesque dancing awards in America, I thought that's the figure right there. Like, I can draw a direct line from a dancer like that to the character written into the song from that personal inspiration, Alestrina, and say, well, if there was ever a representation of that, Ferry Mayer is it. So that was where that idea came from.
That's so awesome. You're also doing a combined single launch with The Voice of Melbourne. Can you tell us a bit more about The Voice of Melbourne and what it is, and some details about the launch?
Well, The Voice of Melbourne initially started as The Voice of Flinders Station, which was just my stupid, ridiculous platform announcements at the train station going viral. This is actually my second swing at media fame. The first one was a TV show in 2017 called Common Sense that I was on, produced by Endemol Shine, who also have, the big one, Gogglebox.
Yeah.
But the show that I was on, which was meant to be the caretaker time slot for the off season of Gogglebox, bombed awfully, both in the UK and here. And so it wasn't renewed. But, I'd always wanted sort of that larger platform to be able to do with that things that I thought that were positive for the world, either culturally or socially or politically. And then Voice of Flinders Station blowing up and that getting fostered into the behemoth that it became, I just went, well, if I was ever going to have like a second chance to really like drive it and do something with it, now's the time. And so rebranding it to The Voice of Melbourne and deciding that I was going to use that platform to, talk to the person on the street about their life, to talk about, people struggling, in an artistic world, trying to make it in a new era of modernization, people trying to run small businesses, in an ever-tightening economy, which is why, like interviewing the artist Helena Black on artworks that she's done for bands, but the fact that AI has impinged so much upon the production of art, talking to dancers like Ferry Mayer, who, with the dilution of the burlesque scene and an oversaturation of people coming in and seeing what happened in the early 2010s and wanting to do that, how she goes and levels up from place to place, because of the way that the dance scene has changed. We've got an upcoming interview with the chef Tamlin from Ballard's Restaurant, and how he maintains originality and individuality in a city that's awash with, incredible food and stuff. I wanted to elevate these voices, as well as, do a bit of political representation as well, which I've done over the last few days to varying degrees of acceptance.
Well, I think that's always the case with that, doing that, but it's really awesome that you are giving it a go and trying to get your voice heard. And I think it's really important with a platform like yours to do that, to advocate. And that was going to be my next question as well. How important is it for you to advocate for minority groups?
I don't want to be one of those vapid figures on social media that walks the tightrope of centrism and doesn't represent or say anything real at all, and simply uses fame for their own glorification. There was a really there was this really nice moment in Aldi a couple of months ago when I came through, and there was this really like, you know, crust punk baby queer anarchist looking kid behind a counter at Aldi, you know, swiping groceries and stuff. And as I was coming through, they went, "Oh my God, you're the voice from the station, you're the station guy." But it's just, you say real stuff. And like hearing that, I was like, yeah, because no one else will. Like, I mean, obviously, like you've got someone like Purple Pingers, whose entire platform is built on being, you know, political and fighting for something real. And you've got Tom Tanuki, who also does the same thing. I didn't get big because I was doing something political. I got big because of something completely unrelated. But I do genuinely believe in how important it is to use that platform for something, you know, for something important. And, you know, in the last 3 months, the times that I take the biggest hit in followers is always when I post something political, whether it was the supporting the CFMEU in their rally in the city a few weeks ago, you know, because their union's now been infiltrated by the government, you know, using administrators to basically dismantle a workers' movement, you know, sticking up for the people of Palestine in the recent photo that'll put up, you know, drawing connection to my connections to Lebanon and my family heritage, and saying something about southern Lebanon being invaded. You know, it's every time I post something like that, we lose 1,000 followers. I think we've lost 6,000 followers in the last 3.5 months. I just don't give a fuck. I just don't give my iota of a flying fuck. I could lose half my following and we'd still have fucking 70,000 followers. What's the point of being accessible to fucking everyone and saying nothing, you know? And there's already plenty of people out there doing that. You know, if I'm going to do something, I don't care if the following shrinks to 100 people, as long as there are 100 solid gold quality people who believe in the same shit that we do. You know, and I mean, that's where, you know, Sordid Ordeal is the best organization now that it's ever been, because, you know, everybody in the band is at least vaguely in the same, you know, on the same page politically and socially, progressively. And I'm like, you know, go figure, it's also the most fun and the most connected the band has ever felt. This is what happens when you foster a fan base, you foster, you know, friendship groups, you foster colleagues out of good people who are on the same page as you, moving in the same direction and want to have the same positive effect on the world. It's all interlinked.
Yeah. Is it crazy to you that maybe people knew you from your TikTok?
I don't personally have TikTok because the accounts were originally started by a commuter who was coming through Flinders Street Station being like, "Oh my God, this is great," and started all these accounts, and then eventually handed them over to me and my team, and you know, the band administrators, Cass and Rox, took over the TikTok because they knew I didn't want to be on TikTok. Is it crazy that look, I don't know. People are always going to find you based on one thing or another. Like, I still bump into people who say, "Hey, you're on that TV show in 2017. Like, people still remember that. That thing was a drop of urine on a toilet seat in the world of media, and somehow people still fucking remember that. I don't understand. But like,
that's just the kind of impact you have on people's lives.
There are people who remember me from a group of Melbourne University students in 2010 who started a secret Facebook page called the Melbourne Afro Jack Black Appreciation Society. And they would bump into me out on the street and take photos of me and upload it to this group. And then when that group was eventually made public, that went the Facebook equivalent of viral about 8 years ago. People will always find the thing they remember you from and relate it back. But I think what I want to do is try and railroad, excuse the pun, railroad as much of that into the music and into Voice of Melbourne, where it's actually useful, where people will actually find something relatable.
That's right, because that's what I was going to say. Is that weird that you know, people recognize you from that, but yet you've had this band for 14 years. I think it's really smart if you can reroute those people into the music. But do people obviously still recognize you from your music as well, or is it just?
Yeah, there are. Look, it's really endearing when people go, "Hey, I remember a set you guys played at the Brunswick Hotel in 2014. Guitar went flying off the stage and crashed through a rack of glasses that were, spread out on the bar. You guys were shit that night, because now I've got to show them that we're not shit anymore, and that it's not the same people in the band. But it's people still remember. It's normally people who aren't as engaged on social media. But if they remember me from the yesteryears of, the Wild West days of the northern, suburbs music scene from the, early 2010s, I find that really endearing as well.
Yeah. And this is the last time I'll mention the voice of Flinders, but can you give us your best line? I know this is on the spot, but can you give us like your best call?
Oh, don't worry, he's got them.
Oh, he's got them.
Just ready to go all the time.
Ready.
I think it was the airport one. Do you want me to do it?
Yes.
Hang on.
I like
good morning and welcome to Flinders Street Station. The next train to depart from Platform 1 is the 1207 Mernda service. This train will reach a cruising altitude of approximately 20 feet above the ground. Please return your tray tables to their full upright position and your chairs... Oh, fuck. Please return your chairs to their full upright position and stow your tray table for takeoff. It's actually starting to fade. I don't remember it as well as I used to.
Don't worry, that was a huge ask, but you got there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love it. Change of pace now. Is there a difference sonically on your new single to your past releases?
Albums 1 and 2 were both recorded in the same recording sessions. There's really only one song left that needs a few parts added to it. So there's quite a consistent sound across the board. The band that we've got at the moment is mostly not the band that recorded this music. There were a couple of members that were on it. So I'm really excited for what album 3 is going to sound like, because it's going to be this band and us working together on it. And having heard how they've taken and interpreted the music from albums 1 and 2, that's something I'm looking forward to. But with Tigress, its release is born out of the same period of writing and production as the last one. So you probably gathered that with the music, there's a lot of different facets to it. Confession being this enormous orchestral power ballad, Citizen being this furious, almost punk rock outburst, Genetic Connection being this foul, bluesy, chugging, AC/DC almost like banger. Like there's a breadth of sort of vibe and mood across the music, and I think that's partially because being raised on Meatloaf and Bruce Springsteen and stuff, they weren't sort of one note artists. Like they had a lot of different facets to them, and they like to explore a lot of different moods on their albums. So Tigress definitely is born out of that really sort of moonshine sounding like blues rock kind of thing.
Riffy rock
and you hear that in Genetic Connection, and the
riffy rock kind of stuff like Genetic Connection, and that's definitely a fundamental base of our music, I think. But it's just one element.
It's very much Jake's wheelhouse, this stuff.
It's my wheelhouse for sure. Yeah.
Oh man. So is there, with the new lineup of you guys, or newer lineup, do you guys sound different, like in a different genre, or is it?
Oh yeah, like we don't really play the songs as they're recorded, like almost any of them.
Yeah.
Like even the arrangements have changed in some.
Oh wow.
Some sections, because there's a much broader available set of instrumentation. Like we've got a couple of female vocalists, a couple of violins, the access to acoustic guitars, and then Lawrence can put down his guitar and jump on the piano whenever, because we've got 2 other guitars if we want, all these kinds of things. So it is fairly different, but it's all very some of it's quite subtle, but it's all based in those same recordings, which is like Lawrence was saying, how it's all been interpreted by the band now. It's kind of jaying us up a bit for the next round of writing and stuff like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
it's gonna be quite fun, I think.
Obviously you're not chauvinistic, and you've included the females in there, and they're getting to have a solid go. 3 females and 3 males in a band is pretty unheard of. I absolutely love that.
And it's also like a lot of the skill is on that side of the band. You don't run into too
I didn't want to say it.
male traditional Irish music fanatics, particularly violins. So like that
Awesome.
kind of came along easily enough. But when Zell hit us up to join the band, that was awesome because she's a phenomenal drummer with a really like extensive career. And funnily enough, we have some mutual friends in the music business in England because I used to go over there working on festivals and stuff. So yeah, she just dropped right in. It was great. And it's not like we didn't go out being like
We need,
we
yeah,
need girls in the band. It just worked out like that, and it is awesome.
yeah.
It's really, really good to not have six dudes
Imagine,
in a band.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, oh man, just like the smell, you know.
yeah,
Also, just in my experience, things can become stagnant like that. Like it's just the same vibe all the time. The band is so much more fun because it's actually a diverse bunch of characters, you know, and it's, as Joe said, like there was no targeted hiring or anything. It's just the way that it wound up. I was just, you know, when I was rebuilding the band after it broke up in early 2023, and I was like, fuck. I'd actually sort of gotten to the point where I was like, this is the last time I do this. If I'm going to rebuild Sordid, because I'd done it 3 or 4 times before, I just went, if I'm rebuilding Sordid, this is the last fucking time. This is it.
yeah.
If it doesn't work this time, I'm walking away from this project. And I sort of waded into the pool of, you know, who was in the music scene. But of course, you know, as a 34-year-old man at the time, I was wading into the pool of people that I knew. I don't know who the younger kids were coming up through, you know, the music scene playing rock and punk, and, you know, the older guys, they're all starting to do a lot of like covers and tribute stuff that they were getting paid quite well for, which is, you know, if they're going to spend their time in music and that's how they want to do it, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I was sort of, I just had to, I went to a cafe on the day that I decided this was the moment I'm going to start rebuilding it. And I wrote all these names down onto a page. It was basically every guitarist, every bass player, every drummer that I could think of. And I scrolled through Facebook and Instagram, and I wrote down every single name. And then I went, here we go. Phone on the table, picked it up, first message, sent it out, and just started approaching people.
That way. Wow.
Most of them weren't playing music anymore. So many of them have moved overseas. So many messages like, oh, hey, mate, so I just got married and put a mortgage down. Like, it's just not a part of my life anymore. Like, It was honestly 98% of people that I had known in the Brunswick punk scene, in, you know, in the Cherry scene, you know, from 2010 through to 2016. Nearly everyone just wasn't doing music anymore. The only people who were still doing it were the people who still cared.
Yeah.
And the first person to jump on board was Jake fucking Winter over there. And I'd watched his band Winter Moon play many times. We'd opened for him a couple of times. I knew he was a fucking incredible guitarist. And so when he came in for a jam and I put it to him and he said yes, it just spilled out from there. Yeah. He recommended Joe because they knew each other from music back in the day, Joe playing bass for Decadence of Cain. And it was like, oh, I know this guy. He's part of the Kingdom crew in Brunswick, like, you know, fucking solid. I don't know if he's doing anything at the moment. And so Jake hooked that up.
Wow.
I was a massive fan of both the Ramshackle Army and the Bottlers. And Ramshackle Army were not doing too much because one of their members had moved to Tassie. And I knew that Ella had moved from Sydney back to Melbourne to spend more time with her family. And, like, having the 2 violinists in Australia's Celtic punk scene who were, like, 2 of the best-known violinists in Australia's Celtic punk scene. People are, like, climbing over each other and fucking, you know, gouging a thumb through each other's eyeballs to work with Cato Gotham and Ella Carstein. And so when I approached them, like, it really was me going for the best of the best in that scene.
Yeah.
And then it's a funny thing, like we were talking earlier about how, you know, the political connections and, you know, maintaining integrity and, you know, which invites people of integrity into your life. I had, you know, in the Voice of Flinders Station days, I had shared a ceasefire rally that was taking place at Flagstaff Gardens. I'd shared that on my socials across the band, personal, and Voice of Flinders Station socials. And Zell had replied to the story and just said, hey, thanks for doing that. That was, you know, great work sharing that event. and I clicked on a profile picture and went to a profile, and it's a drum page, and I was like, oh my fucking god, this is a sign. And I messaged her, I'm like, hey, you're a drummer. Are you doing anything? I tell you what,
Join my band, please.
The greatest feeling was that I didn't have 35 mutual friends also following her. I was like, she's virtually untouched. What is this? Like, it's like walking into a fucking op shop and seeing, you know, a 1963 Stratocaster on the fucking wall, but like without a line out the door trying to auction it off. I just couldn't believe it, and I was like, she was like, yeah, I've just moved here from New Zealand. I'm really in like 2 other bands, but I'm not doing too much. And I was like, oh, I've got a band. Do you want to come and play with us? We went for a beer that afternoon. Like,
oh my god, that's
that was born out of integrity. That was literally born out of being like, oh, we're standing up for something here, and someone responding to that. You know?
Yeah, 100%, exactly. So that lays clear, you know, how you guys, the sorts of messages, I guess, you guys want to get across in your music as well. And do you want to talk about that a bit as well? The themes that you do sing about?
Sure. Yeah. Look, it's not a band like Mudrat, where like literally every single song is political. And I think like Rage Against the Machine's a bit like that. We're probably a little bit more like the Oils, I guess. Like there are political songs, but then there's deeply personal songs as well. And I think that's like a lot of the music that's been written for the band so far. Obviously, I wrote, you know, it's quite autobiographical. So, you know, it is the deeply personal stuff, but that is also connected to the political. You know, like coming out of a militaristic religious cult like the Catholic Church, and then having to learn not to hate gay people. Like that is an act of political salvation in a way. That is like, you know, I had to rebuild my entire personality, my entire set of values from scratch. And that was because I went to La Trobe University in 2007, you know, and I was typically doing an arts course that I typically dropped out of. But like the people that I met who took me under their wing, and it was people from, it was queer people, it was people of color. And, you know, like they saw this young, impressionable kid who's, you know, nuts and bolts all weren't too, you know, put together. And you could argue that they still aren't, but they could see that there was a misalignment in values there, and he just needed to be sort of set straight and looked after. And that's what happened at La Trobe. I just met people who were 4, 5, 6 years older than me, had been around a little bit longer, and I'm this 18-year-old kid who's like hungry to learn about the world and do everything, but also, you know, had just a few wires crossed, and they sorted it out, you know, and that's something that I sing about, and sort of being, you know, ingratiated into, you know, a community that values activism, you know, in standing up for First Nations rights, and, you know, hopefully eventually decolonization, and standing up against weapons manufacturing in Australia that, you know, to this day is bombing places like Palestine now. It's you know, the political stuff is tied in with the personal stuff, and I want to cover it all. I don't think I'll ever be that one-track writer, and when the band start collaborating and writing together, I doubt it'll all go down the one-track mind. But I like that broadness of like talking about the deeply personal human experience, which is also connected to a world that is dictated literally by politics, whether you acknowledge that or not.
Exactly. If you can not only have a political message for nothing, or well, not for nothing, but just a political message, but, you know, obviously if it's personal to you guys as well, and you're really combining those two, it's pretty amazing.
I think it's more genuine that way, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Comes across more genuine if you're sort of actually genuinely tied into it and involved.
Exactly. And that's why I like, as you mentioned, Midnight Oil, like that's why I like their stuff too, because it's not just saying stuff for the hell of saying.
They like, and Lawrence as well, tend to like handle their storytelling with their politics in the same way. Like that, like Blue Sky Mine, they tell the story of like unionism and working and stuff through the eyes of a guy who has to go to work every day digging a hole.
Yeah.
And like, if no one's going to save me, like, so like all those kinds of things. So it's good to be like personal with stuff. I think one of my favorite things, like I got really into heavy metal and all that being a teenager, and an angry kid in Queensland and all that. And like one of the things that I found really attractive to that scene was like the expressionism and outlet of like being that pissed off at the world, but having a community who like very openly and like at a lot of times aggressively kind of engage in that, and having like even the physical expression of like going to gigs and moshing and that kind of stuff. It's like I think it's really important as a musician, as an artist in general, to connect with people on a real level rather than just saying, here is the political statement.
Yes, exactly. You guys are headlining Metal in the Mountains in November. How big is that for you guys?
I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah. Can you believe
I think it's good. I mean, like on the like the practical side of like the band's path, it's good to cut into the festival circuit because now there's something to say, look, we did that.
Yeah.
Headlined a festival because for the next festival, that kind of thing. So there's that like very management practical aspect of it. But just like through playing with Decadence, my favorite thing turned out to be going and playing rural shows.
Yeah.
Because particularly we grew up in Brisbane, which it was a small city with a small scene back then, which is like it's quite a resilient scene because all their venues and bars close every 3 years and reopen like a year later, like as a running cycle for decades. They're on a pretty long downturn at the moment, actually, but like it's great, but you play to the same 40 people every week.
Yeah,
which is cool. And then you come to Melbourne, and we found that there's so many gigs on that you couldn't convince anyone to come to yours because the saturation of the market was so extreme. But then you go and play in like Echuca or like we did a lot of shows in Canberra, and you make deep personal connections with people there.
Yeah,
and that was the best part. Like, I'd rather go and play to 20 people in the mountains who love it, and become your mates for the rest of your life than 20 people in, St Kilda who couldn't give a fuck and threw up in your guitar case.
Yeah, that's so true.
So like Metal in the Mountains particularly, I'm real stoked about to go up there and play to a crowd of people who for them it's kind of a big deal for like big show to come to down, and like they'll like it has meaning.
Yeah, that's right. It's the collection of all those people in those areas, I guess, that would go to your gigs and all in one area from everywhere. That's awesome. How did you guys all meet? I mean, well, I guess you already explained that a bit, Lawrence. Was it the same for Joe and Jake? You looked up.
Well,
I'm keen to hear this story myself. Actually, I don't know how those two met or what the early interactions were like.
Okay.
So we met when my band moved to Melbourne in 2011.
Yeah.
We moved into a permanent rehearsal space on Inkerman Street called Soxy Music, and Winter Moon were one of the other bands we shared that room with.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
we had an arrangement where we shared it. We paid a monthly fee to be able to use the room as much as we like, and we shared it with one other band. I think we ended up having two other bands at some point or something. But
it varied, but there was no one other band that I even remember meeting that stayed for more than like a couple months, really. I think there was one other band who was there for a while, but they were just a rock act who weren't like real social. It was a bit weird. There was a little bit of friction there, I remember, with like how gear was treated and moved around and that kind of shit. But we got along great, and Jake lived around the corner on Grey Street. Oh no, Gurner Street. On Gurner Street, in a little house there. And I kind of like wedged my way into that whole like run of flats and friend group in that. So we've been mates for a really, really long time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like after when Decadence broke up in like 2014 or something, or 13, somewhere around then, I just kind of went into just work, and I was doing a lot of like touring gigs in the UK and that kind of stuff. So I didn't have any time for music. So I didn't play in a band for like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Until one day Jake was like, hey, I'm jamming with this dude, Lawrence. He's got a band. You want to come and check it out? And I was like, yeah, cool. Lawrence is like, how's your politics? I was like, fucking left as. And he's like, good, you're in.
You're in.
Yeah, don't love cops. Good.
And I think Lawrence and I just met through the music scene around Melbourne years ago, right? Like,
it was it was us hoping for you guys and seeing this guitarist with this like cascading blonde hair. He was like the Robert Plant of guitar. I was like, I was so intimidated. He plays this enormous fucking hollow body Hagstrom, and like the hair's just wild. I mean, people say that I've got like cool hair. This guy had the hair, and it went down past his shoulders. It was like this
full Viking mode.
Croatian Viking. Yeah, it was really impressive.
Grow it back.
Yeah.
It's on the way.
Please. All right. And last question, Lawrence, are you in Melbourne at the moment?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Do you still want to get the frick out of Melbourne, or why do you have Melbourne?
Look, on the weekend, like
it's
everybody needs a break.
Everyone needs a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Jake, I love getting out of the city. You should see Jake's set up for getting out of the city. Like, he's got this fucking Land Cruiser,
like rooftop
80s era tank. Like, the only thing it's missing is the gun on the front. It's fucking enormous. Like, but one of my favorite spots to get out of Melbourne and escape to was the Great Ocean Road, and I did that on a few occasions with a particular girlfriend years ago who also sang backup on that single even after we'd broken up. Yeah. And just because I associated those memories with her so much, and just had some really nice times down on the Great Ocean Road at the most highly pressurized times in my life. So yes, I still want to get the fuck out of Melbourne. I love being here, but I would really love to do a tour of Europe right now, opening for someone cool. That'd be good. That'd get me the fuck out of Melbourne.
Yeah, that'd be all right.
Yeah, we'd love to go to Europe.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. Oh, well, thank you so much, Sordid Ordeal. Keep your eyes peeled, everyone, for the single Tigress coming out this Friday, and the video clip coming out on the 11th. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.